In our newest episode of Kosher Money, I open a retirement account live on camera. And by the end, you're going to know more than 99% of your friends about investing. So, you want to retire a millionaire? Listen up. We're excited to have Shimon Willig join us in studio. We got our laptops out in front of us. We've never done a screen share. So if you're listening on audio, there will be a special video component of this. It's going to be hands-on. We're going to go through a particular trading platform, set up some accounts. And I'm excited to do this because many people have been asking for a how-to. They hear a ton of information. We got to invest. We got to think about our future. But what do I do? So we have Living Smarter Jewish. It provides free services to people. But some folks, they want to do it themselves. And we're going to learn about Shimon Willig. We're going to go through Charles Schwab. There are many trading platforms we can do this on. I personally use Fidelity, but we're going to create a real live account/accounts for me on Schwab. You can use TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, Interactive Brokers. There's no shortage of trading platforms. But without further ado, Shimon, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get into the financial space?
So I grew up in a small shtetl in Queens called Kew Gardens. I never thought I would be a financial advisor. My father's a Rav in the community. I learned in Eretz Yisrael after I got married for 5 years. And I actually was studying to become an actuary. That's what I thought I would do. But I realized part of the way through it that it was too in the back. I wanted to be more involved with people. I wanted to be more connected to the human side of business. After doing some research, I realized that this would be something which has some similar traits. There's an analytical side to it, but also a really strong interpersonal part of the business. And so I went looking for a job, and I landed here.
There's a stigma with actuaries that they're complete nerds.
There's a huge stigma about it. And before I started studying for it, I thought about it actually, like, oh my goodness, am I really going to become an actuary? But I was going to jump in, and I did jump in. And I took a couple of tests, but I realized that it's not something I wanted to do. And 2 tests in wasn't going to stop me from setting myself up for a whole career of something that I wasn't happy with. So I pivoted, and I joined the wealth management workforce.
How old are you now?
33.
33. So how long have you been in the financial advisement space?
5 years.
5 years. What would you describe it as? Is it same thing every day? Is it seasonal? How does it work?
It's definitely seasonal. There are certain parts of the year which are more busy than other parts of the year. More for me, it's the end of the year when people are tidying up their, to-do list. There are accounting types of things that need to be taken care of. There are much more active trading, which needs to be happened at that point in time. But my day is busy with people and busy with the market. So depending on which day of the week and which month of the year, it's different every day.
Cool. Fine. So what does a typical day look like for a financial advisor? Are you waking up to 17 emails of your clients saying, please trade out of this stock and into this stock? Or, hey, I'd like to open up an IRA for a child. What are some of the happenings in your inbox and throughout your day?
Okay. So it really depends on what type of day, but there are many different parts of the job. There's a strong sales part of the job. Obviously, you're trying to bring in clients and grow your business. So there's a certain outreach part of the business. People reach out to me all the time and ask me, is becoming a financial advisor a good job? And I always ask them, why do you want to become a financial advisor? So most people answer because, similar to what I said, I want to be involved with the people side. I want to be able to help other people, which does exist in the business. But inevitably, I always tell them, that's great and that's wonderful, but that's a few years into the job. But at some point early on, there has to be a strong sales part of it. You're going to have to go out there and try to build a business of people who want to trust you with their assets and their money to invest. And so there's a very intense early on in the career outreach side to the business. And then as you develop and you build your book of business, then there is a lot of the questions like you mentioned before. Hey, I just had a kid. I want to, open up an account for them to, save for a wedding. Or I have this amount of money which came in. What do you think is a good idea for it to go in? Or there are people reaching out about the market. So the market does well. Less people reach out. The market doesn't do well. More people reach out. So the day is full of excitement all the time. But overall, it comes together, and I'm enjoying it.
For someone just starting out, they'd likely start working for somebody else
Correct.
instead of opening their own firm, right? Do you recommend that?
Yes, that's a very good idea. It's people trusting you with personal assets for the most part. In business, at least I found you can ask for a piece of business. Let's say in the insurance world, you're a nice guy, you work for a firm, and you say, you know, please, trust me with your business. They're like, you're a nice guy. Here, I'll give you my business. But wealth management is very personal. It's people's assets that they plan on using for their personal needs, and it's much harder to gain their trust with. So, working for somebody else that has a lot of experience, a lot of trust in the community, on a broad level, really helps you. And by building and gaining your own personal experience, that allows you to reach out to more clients that you might want and be like, hey, I have this amount of experience. I work for this firm. Maybe we can have a conversation about some investments and some personal finance.
You mentioned wealth management being personal. I think people are quicker to change their doctor than the person who's handling their money, right? It's that intimate.
It's very, very intimate, which is why ideally the perfect client is a client that doesn't bother you every single day, week, and month. It's not because we're trying to be lazy as business people, but rather when you build a strong relationship, when you understand their family intimately, when you understand them really, really well. There are clients of mine who I think I understand them better than their wives do, for sure on a financial level. Like there are certain things they'll tell me that they haven't shared with, people that are really, really close to them.
We don't recommend
Parents,
that. There should be a
there should be, of course, great communication, but sometimes people do want to separate, the church and the state a little bit
Mhm,
and have their business and their personal finance not be something their wives have to go and deal with and stress over
mhm.
if that's something which they struggle with a little bit. And so they choose either to speak to friends of theirs and, when they have a good advisor, they talk to their advisors about it.
Do you feel like a psychologist some days?
Very much so. Yes.
Why?
Because you get to see people's anxieties very strongly when it comes to their money. I know this is like cliche sounding,
Mhm.
but when you think that the more money means that people be more relaxed about it, it really doesn't work that way. Some people they get more money and they get more comfortable, but oftentimes it brings on more anxiety in them. They get more worried, am I doing things right? Still what's gonna be, my lifestyle is such and such. I have this happening in the future. What how am I gonna go spend it? There are people who make a lot of money and don't even know that they can like pay their bills for the year.
Mhm.
And they're making it by 7 digits. They're 7 digits plus their spend. But still, there's a certain anxiety that they have. Oftentimes, it's really from when they were kids and how they grew up. But
So
it's
they're
really interesting
making a
to
lot
see.
of money. They're spending also a lot of money?
Not necessarily.
Mm.
Some people can make a lot, spend a lot, still have a lot extra. Some people can make a lot, spend a little, but it's just their mindset and the way they grew up
Mhm.
that they're still unclear. It's like a lack of clarity in their life that if I can help with that clarity, if I can tell them, hey, you have the money, you can go out for dinner, you can buy this car, you can even renovate your house if that's really what you want to do.
Mhm.
It's very helpful to them.
And in terms of the day to day, are you dealing with stocks and ETFs? Are you advising people on when they shouldn't invest in real estate? How broad of the investment or potential investment portfolio are you looking at?
Okay. It's a really, really good question. And this is again back to when I speak to other people. Ultimately, a financial advisor is there to be a help to someone else's finances. So the more broad of a knowledge that you have in finances overall, the more helpful and the better a financial advisor you can be. An advisor who knows taxes really well is more helpful than an advisor who only knows investments. An advisor who knows real estate well, he understands, the investments well, he can help a client go through them. He's really valuable to somebody who likes doing real estate investments and so on and so forth. So the more and more broad of a knowledge that you have, the better you are. I tell people expect an advisor to be, an investment an analyst, an accountant, a personal CFO sometimes, so many different jobs. And it's important for people to find an advisor that really fits their niche well, like their weaknesses, their things that they're looking for help. That's what they should be looking for.
What's the starting salary for someone that starts working for somebody else? And we'll get into the schooling after
hmm
that, but what can someone expect to make starting out? And let's go from there.
So I work for an REA, which is called a Registered Investment Advisory. So that's like a private wealth management group.
Mm,
So there's two types of wealth advisors. There's the wirehouse advisors, people who work for the big banks, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, Merrill Lynch.
mhm,
Then there are those who work for private groups. Like I like to consider ourselves brokers in the insurance agent world. We're free. We don't work for any bank. We custody our money at Schwab, which is why we're going to be doing some work with Schwab
mhm.
today. But we have no bank that we're employed by. So they're really two totally different paths to go on in the wealth management field. In my personal case, I got a salary for the first couple of years of my employment, and then that went away, and then I kind of have to build my own book of business that I can manage, and I have the company's infrastructure obviously there to support me, but ultimately it's my business within that infrastructure. When it comes to the wirehouses, I think there are similar paths. Like there are training programs you can join for 1 to 2 years that they do pay you a salary, but the structure is definitely a little different, and I don't want to talk for it if I haven't experienced it myself.
Understood. So you started in the private wealth management.
Yes.
So someone who's starting out there today, 2025, 2026, whenever they're listening to this, are we talking starting salary of $50,000, $80,000? Are there bonuses? How does that work?
I would say probably between the two numbers.
Mhm,
Again, things have changed since I started 5 years ago.
mhm.
So, between those two numbers, I think is reasonable.
And then do most people who start in the private wealth management track end up creating their own firms if they feel like they're effectively helping their clients?
So it's not as simple to open up a wealth management group if you just feel like, hey, I want to do it. There are so many um, regulations and regulators. There's the SEC and FINRA. So it's not simple just to say, hey, I want to start my own business.
Mhm,
Oftentimes what people do is if they feel like their infrastructure could be better somewhere else and they have a strong book of business, they can move from one group to another group.
mhm.
Similar, like I said before, like what's going to work towards my strengths? Who's going to support me in the way that I need most from a technology side, from a people side, from a flexibility side. There's a lot of oversight in the business as well, and some people can feel a little bit choked from it. So it's more within existing businesses you can move around. It's a little more rare for somebody to start their own RIA.
And how do these firms make money? Is it on every trade? Is there a flat fee that they're charging their clients? Is it hourly? Is it a mix of all of those?
So most people in the private wealth space, like where I am, it's mostly charging on AUM, which is assets under management. So we charge a set fee yearly for all the work that we do, but we're not charging for like every trade that we do
Mhm,
and stuff like that. There are parts of the business as well which you can charge consulting for, depending on the size of the client. People might charge for financial planning, for example. You have a small client who comes into the business and they want a certain level of service that maybe their assets don't pay for.
mhm.
So you can get more high level wealth management and financial planning for a fee. But again, everybody chooses to niche their business in a different way. But mostly it's fee only.
Gotcha. And what type of schooling? What are the costs, or what type of upkeep financially do you have to spend on whatever certifications you have?
Okay. So it's mostly a certification business. You have to get license from the proper sources.
Mhm.
So there is the study costs and then there's the test taking costs, but it's not really so much. The most important thing in the business is all experience. Experience is the number one thing. When you walk into the business and you talk to somebody and you've been in the business for 6 months, no one's looking at you. It's about learning from a good group of people, people with experience, about setting yourself up with people that can help you grow in your business and gaining and growing your business that way.
There are those, and that's why we're doing this, that want to open up their own account. They don't want to exchange some percentage for whatever reason. Do people call you up and say, "Hey, I need help opening up an IRA brokerage account, but I just want you to help me open it. I don't want you to manage it."
Yes, absolutely. So, to Living Smarter Jewish,
Hmm.
shout out to Zevi Wallman and the team. People can get access to advisors such as myself that can give you on hourly financial advice to get yourself started. Really powerful and really valuable for people who just got married, maybe a little bit older, and a financial advisor won't necessarily give you the time that you're looking for because of the amount of money that you have. But you really do want the advice and you want the ability to go and set yourself up for success. So you meet with an advisor, and oftentimes the advisor will give you instructions and directions what to do to accomplish a lot of your financial goals. This is something which I've been doing for a bunch of years since the beginning of Living Smarter Jewish. And I'll give people a direction. Hey, open up this such and such account with whatever brokerage firm you would like, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, Robin, or whatever you feel comfortable with. And, maybe we'll meet again once everything's open, everything's set up in the account. So there are people who are really geschickt is the Yiddish word for it. They're very comfortable opening accounts and no problem. And there are people that you see like the anxiety of what do I do? What is a brokerage account? Like, oh my goodness, am I giving away all my money? Imagine somebody, all they have when they're 60 is $400,000 to live on for the next 20 years.
Mm.
And then they open an account, they move it from their bank that they have had it in there for 30 years
Hmm.
and they move it. It's like the anxiety on their face is unbelievable. Like,
Hmm.
oh my goodness, what did I just do? So back to what you said about being a psychologist, that's when the psychology has to come into play to calm people down, make them feel comfortable, and explain to them why opening a brokerage account is not a big deal in the world.
A short break with a note from the best dressed folks in town, Twillory. More and more of you are scooping up their new arrivals with first-time deals and free shipping. Twillory's clothing is being spotted across the world, from New York to the Colel. So, if you want to visit a retail location, I've got good news. They have one in Long Island and soon in, drumroll, Lakewood, New Jersey. I took a tour 2 weeks ago at their Cedarhurst, Long Island location and was quite impressed with their new polo designs, the texture. They're innovating. And oh, they're very, very comfortable. And oh, they're durable. So if you're in the market for a new fit, check out twillory.com/kosher money. Links in the show notes. Use code CHAI20, CHAI20, for 20% off for a limited time. You can even scan the QR code on the screen if you're watching on a computer or a smart TV. That's twillory.com/kosher money. And now let's talk about artificial intelligence. You've heard about it. AI, it's everywhere. Companies are building wildly cool applications, but there's also a lot of AI noise. What do businesses really know when it comes to AI, and what's your competition doing with it? What technology are organizations taking because of smart software-based solutions? This all sounds good, but you don't know where to turn. So let me tell you about BitBean. Yaakov and I went to their offices and saw them up close and personal. They sit with you, they guide you, they learn about your business, and they create a software-based solution at an affordable price. And because of AI, it's even more affordable than it used to be. So if you have a tech project, an app you want to build, a back-end system that needs to be customized and built for you because you're special, because your business is unique, I highly recommend taking a look at bitbean.com. Initiate a conversation. What you're going to get is premium software without the premium price. Even if it's not a good fit right now, I recommend checking out bitbean.com anyway because you can see what is available, what other businesses have done, their case studies. Really cool. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the show notes. And now back to this week's episode. I think a lot of today's folks remember Madoff and the emotions and the realities people lived in when their life savings, I mean, the crash in '08, that's what a lot of millennials remember as it
Mhm.
relates to finance. So when you open up a desktop computer these days, which many people are actually using their mobile devices for. So when you open up an account, which tends to happen on a desktop, you see all the options. There's a lot of words that I don't necessarily understand. You just click on, and you can see it on the screen for those on the video, accounts and products. There's brokerage and trading, retirement accounts, education and custodial, personal choice retirement, accounts by financial goal. And even in those 6 sections, there's many subsections. And when you click on it and you said, okay, you know what? I understand what an IRA is. I want to put money away towards retirement. And then when you click on it and it says traditional IRA or Roth IRA, backdoor Roth IRA, if you don't know what you're doing on a platform you've never seen before, it can be scary. But if you have the steps and you know what you're clicking on, and then you have your account open and you have a good understanding because someone guided you for an hour as to, automate this, put this amount of money in on every 2 weeks, or whenever you have an extra $100, slide it into here, purchase this. Nothing flashy, right? It calms people down when they have familiarity with it, which is what we're trying to put together. So we're going to use Schwab. We're going to try to open a few different accounts. We're going to blur my private information so you don't know exactly what and who I am. But my name is Ellie Langer. We're going to I'd love to open a Roth IRA today. Is that
Okay,
possible?
of course.
So I do have a traditional IRA through Fidelity
Hmm.
for me and my wife, which allows us to put $7,000 a year, I believe, away, and that's considered pre-tax or no, post-tax.
You said Roth or
Oh,
traditional?
sorry, traditional. Okay, I know this, guys. Please, traditional IRA. If we make $100,000 a year, the government will look at it as if we make 86,000 because it's 7,000 and 7,000.
That's right.
And then when we take it out at the end, when we're ready to retire, that will be taxed then.
Hmm.
But if someone is making more money when they retire, I'm told, and you can tell me if this is right, they're better off getting taxed now and putting that money into a Roth IRA for that, so that when you take the money out, you're not taxed on it then.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so I'm optimistic I'll make more money in 20, 30 years from now than where I am now, but I don't have a Roth IRA.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking open a Roth IRA and start putting money into there. How much money can I put into a Roth IRA annually?
So you could put the same amount of money into a Roth IRA as a traditional IRA, same 7,000. The numbers change year over year, but a very quick Google search, 2025
Uh-huh.
IRA limits should give you the response pretty quickly. And that again exists traditional and Roth, same.
And the money that's in my traditional, I've been putting money away into, I had a 401k through CNBC, but then when I left there, the money was just sitting there. And then I moved that into an IRA
Hmm.
so that I can just have it all in one spot and invest it, whatever.
Hmm.
Let's say I have $100,000 in a traditional IRA. Would it make sense potentially for me to move that money into a Roth IRA?
Okay, that's a great question. And it's something which advisors like to keep in their back pocket, when understanding a person's financial situation. Oftentimes, somebody who does well for themselves, it's very hard to find an opportunity for them to move money from a traditional IRA to a Roth because if they're making good money and they're in a high tax bracket, if they move the money over from the traditional to the Roth, they're going to be taxed as if they earned an additional, let's say you have $100,000,
Hmm.
as if they earned an additional $100,000 that year. So the money that you add on to your bottom line is all top end federal tax bracket money. So if a person's in the 32% bracket and he adds $100,000 there, that's $32,000 in additional taxes that he's going to be paying that year from the federal government. So what's really beneficial is, and it happened recently actually, there were a lot of people who made a lot of money during COVID doing different businesses, all the COVID businesses, you all know what they are. And a year or two later, maybe they weren't working so hard, they did it really well. And then they had taken advantage of a lot of ways to lower their taxes in those, let's say 2020, 2021. But 2022 and 23, they really weren't making so much money. So that's maybe a time to think, hey, if I put away $100,000 and I made $50,000 in, a year or two later, maybe let's take advantage of the low earnings and move some of the money over from the traditional to the Roth so I can pay the taxes now when I'm again in a low bracket,
Hmm.
10 to 20%, and, you know, be done with it forever. So it's good to keep in your mind, like if there's a weak year and you have traditional or pre-tax assets spread across your platforms, maybe think about making a transfer. However, whenever you're discussing more significant amounts of money, probably a good idea to speak to an advisor and the advisor to be in touch with the client's accountant as well, just to make sure that things aren't going to be affected by that transfer. Like there are a lot of things which shift based upon your AGI, how much money you earn, and you just want to make sure that the person's not going to lose out on other significant benefits, or his tax number is going to be significantly changed because of the rollover.
Gotcha. So theoretically, I could leave all that money in the traditional IRA right now, not trigger any tax related event. And if I feel confident or hopeful with God's help in 20, 30 years to make more money, if I start now at the age of 39, putting money solely into my Roth IRA, that could be beneficial for me.
Yes, correct. And there is another advantage to putting money into a Roth IRA, which is back to the psychology of it. When it comes to IRAs, not everything is just about the finances in terms of what's my tax number going to look like, but rather, what does a person feel like when they put away money that they know they really can't take out until they're basically 60 years old? So, somebody, middle class America, you know, again, depending where you live, he's making enough money to pay his bills and to put away money, but he's not so confident that in 5 years it's going to be that way. And he's going to be 40. What am I going to do? I have this money sitting in my IRA account and I can't access it at all. What's really beneficial about a Roth IRA is that all the principal that you put into the account, which means the $7,000 that you already pay taxes on, because it's a post tax contribution, that money can be taken out at any time without any taxes and penalties.
I don't like that happens to be because I don't like having access to liquidity. I'm not the best at keeping the liquidity. I'll either give it to tzedakah or figure out a way to spend it. So I might not have a ton, the 3 to 6 months that are recommended for emergency savings or to have a backup. If I have any liquidity, I just try to put it towards retirement. And I know that there's a penalty on the traditional side that if I touch it, I'm like, okay, forget it. That's untouchable money. So I'm nervous when you're saying, oh, with the Roth IRA, you theoretically have access to it when it comes to a wedding.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely could talk to the IRS for you and they'll
Hmm.
put penalties on your taking out the money. They'll be happy to take it.
Right.
So again, some people that's a benefit that
Right.
they want to put it away and not think about it. So it doesn't help them at all. But for a lot of people, you can convince yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to put money into the Roth IRA.
Mhm.
And I know I'm nervous about what's going to be in 5 years, but if in 5 years I need the money, I'll take
Right.
out the principal. Let's say it's 7 times 5, $35,000. So I know I have the 35,000, and what it grew to 50, 55. So I won't take the last 20, but I know it's kind of like a zero interest savings account that you can have access to. So I find when speaking to people, they feel so calm that knowing that I'm not throwing away the money, it's still, so to speak, mine. I know I can access it, and that will allow them to supercharge their contributions without that feeling of being choked.
That's cool. I didn't know that. So let's open up a Roth IRA and we'll go through some of these other accounts a little later. The UTMA, UGMA accounts for minors. We'll touch on individual brokerage accounts, 529 college savings plans, and let's go through it. So on my screen, I'm over here. I'm going to click on accounts and products on Charles Schwab, schwab.com. And I'm going to click on retirement accounts,
Maybe
IRAs.
maybe just hit just the big orange button which says open an account.
Okay, fine. Easy. Right there on the top right of the screen, open an account. So right away, popular investment accounts. Individual brokerage, joint brokerage, Roth IRA, traditional IRA, rollover IRA. What's a rollover IRA?
Mostly it's just like wordings of it. It's
Hmm.
just an IRA that you're going to open up to move over assets from either an IRA in another firm or from a 401k. But really, they're the same tax
Oh, so that's what
treatment.
I did when I left CNBC and I took a 401k and made it a traditional
Correct.
IRA.
But you can honestly open it up as a traditional IRA and do a rollover as well.
Say that again?
You can open up a traditional IRA and submit a rollover as well. Like by not clicking the rollover IRA, it's not going to affect
Oh,
your ability to open that
got
account.
it. So for this, I'm going to plan for my future with a Roth IRA.
Hmm.
There's also here, it said individual brokerage versus a joint brokerage. So an individual brokerage, I understand that's just a regular trading account
Hmm.
that has no retirement contribution, tax savings. But what's a joint brokerage?
Okay. So a joint brokerage is most married people have a joint account in the bank. So a joint brokerage account is a joint account brokerage. It means that your wife and yourself, or you and a friend, whoever, are going to be both listed on the account.
Got it. So if someone who's single opens up an individual brokerage, they get married, you'll probably get a phone call. How do we turn this into a joint? How do I add my spouse to that?
Hmm. I always find it's easiest just to open up a joint account and then move the money over.
So you can open up a joint brokerage without being married, theoretically?
Yes. There's a lot of similarities between banking and brokerage. Anything that you can do in a bank, you can do in a brokerage house.
People are paying their bills from a brokerage account?
People are actually, yeah.
Really?
Hmm.
Interesting.
You can even get on Charles Schwab, even without having Schwab Bank, which maybe we should mention as well. You can get checks, and the checks can be written off the cash balance which you have in the account.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm going to click on Roth IRA. Is that okay with you?
Hmm.
And I see there's a live chat button on the bottom, which if I'm doing this myself, I don't have to run to ChatGPT to ask a question. I could actually speak to somebody there to assist in real time.
Hmm. And you can call them up. By the way, I don't have the phone number on me, but I know from speaking to people who open accounts on the retail side, like what we're doing right now. And Schwab Alliance people say have been very helpful. So you call them up and say, I'm opening an account and I'm having trouble with XYZ. They'll help you out. They know their website obviously very well. And so you can get like personal advice while opening the account.
And this idea that I have already most of my accounts in Fidelity and I'm opening up a Roth IRA in Charles Schwab, that just means a different login, right? There's no negative necessarily to have two separate trading, what are these called? Trading houses?
Yeah. Broker houses or
Broker
trading
houses.
platforms.
Gotcha. There's no downside to that.
Mm-mm.
Got it. Okay. So I'm going to click on, with your permission, Roth IRA. And for those that are doing this at home, the platforms can sometimes change, buttons can be shifted over, but essentially the crux of it will always be there. So it says, let's open your Roth IRA. What can you do with a Roth IRA? Make after tax contributions, which we spoke about, pay no taxes on qualified withdrawals, which you spoke about. But what does it mean, qualified withdrawal?
So there are certain withdrawals that are accessible from a Roth account. The most basic one is once you're over the age of 59 and a half, you can take out the money that you put in there and not get taxed on it. It's because you already pay the taxes. And there are also certain withdrawals which are available from IRA accounts, which you can access here as well. Like when you buy a house or if you just have a child, there are a certain amount of money that's available to you as if you were retired that you can pull out.
It also says buy and sell stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, exchange traded funds, and other investments. What are the costs of opening a Roth IRA?
Okay.
$0 monthly fee and $0 account minimum. So, how is Charles Schwab making any money on me who's doing this myself and making a trade?
Okay. That's a great question. A great question.
Is
I
this is Charles Schwab a nonprofit?
Charles Schwab is definitely for profit. You can see their stock online, Google Schwab stock, and you can see how much they're worth. So they're definitely a business that people are willing to invest in. Until recently, it didn't work this way, which means you had to go and pay for every trade.
Oh, really?
You would open up an account and you would get like a, hey, open an account with Schwab and we'll give you $50 worth of, free trades, to hook you in. I think it was Robinhood which really started the new way of brokerages doing business. Robinhood started without charging any fees to make any trades. And because of their popularity, Schwab and other brokerage houses followed in their direction. It's complicated how they make money. I can't tell you I understand all of it, but I think it has to do with how they process the orders. They get basically paid on the trade processing.
Got it.
Let's
Okay.
try to skip that.
No, this is cool. People want to know, or at least I want to know. Market cap, Charles Schwab. I just Googled it. The stock ticker is SCHW. They're up almost 1% today. Maybe they know we're doing this. Market cap, $173 billion. So they're not doing all that bad.
Pretty well, right? Not bad. We'll take $173 billion.
And for the past 5 years, the stock's up 175%. So they're doing okay. Don't worry about Charles Schwab at home that it says $0 service fees, $0 account minimum.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to open a Roth IRA? Your social security or tax identification number, your employer's name and mailing address, if applicable, the birth dates for people who you want to inherit your IRA assets. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What is that all about? The inheritance factor of why do they want to know? When I open up a bank account, does it say who who should inherit it? Are they just being proactive here? What's this?
With IRA assets, the people who inherit it are not necessarily governed the same way that regular estate assets are.
Mhm.
Estate assets go by the estate. So if you have a will which governs your estate, then your will decide who inherits your assets. With IRAs, the IRA precedes the will. So if you want to create a separate, or you want to mention who's going to inherit the assets with IRA specifically, you definitely want to go and mention and write it in. Is it going to be your wife? Is it going to be your children? Who's going to inherit it first? Who's going to inherit it second? So it's important to try to do it while you open the account. If you don't choose to write it, you can still open the account. It's fine. But it is important at some point in your life to make sure that your IRA does have beneficiaries listed.
Do you do that once a year, housekeeping on an account with your clients to ensure that the direction after, God forbid, a death or their interests are aligned with whatever something new, second marriage, new child, new grandchild, those types of things?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it happens once a year. It more happens like what you mentioned when there is like a significant change in the life,
Mm.
either financially or just personally. And they need to update their estate documents, their wills, trusts, beneficiaries, all that type of stuff. So it's important for every person. I wouldn't say every year, definitely every 5 years, maybe.
Hmm.
Just dust off those documents, make sure that you have them in order, and maybe take a look at them and see does it make sense to you, and like should that person really be your beneficiary? If not, it's important to reach out to whoever created those trusts for you and created the wills and the estate documents, and maybe have a conversation and be like, hey, does this still make sense for me, or is this something that we should think about updating and changing?
Gotcha. For people doing it themselves, I tell them to put an actual notification on their calendar, make it recurring. You know, get that email every 3 years that encourages you to do A, B, and C. No different than an annual physical.
That's
If you don't put
exactly
it on
right.
your calendar, you're going to forget.
That's exactly right. And there are many stories out there
Mhm.
of people who had very significant amounts of money, whether it's an IRA. Life insurance thing is more common because it's like more separated from your, the money, so to speak. It's like this outside asset that you have that they'll have listed as a beneficiary. Let's call it a spouse. And then they'll get divorced and be no longer be with the spouse. And sometimes it actually be a very messy and uncomfortable situation. And then lo and behold, 10 years later, 15 years later, the person passes on. And then him or her are listed as the beneficiary of a very significant amount of money. And that's obviously not at all what the person wanted and leads to a very uncomfortable conversations, especially if there are children that are there.
Probably many uncomfortable
Yes,
conversations,
that's
right?
right.
That's why Shimon Willig is also a psychologist, not in certification, but it also says have an offer or referral code, enter your code. This is all free. So
Correct.
maybe if I had a code, they'd pay me to open up the Roth IRA. You mentioned wills. I actually created a will, but not through a Jewish firm.
hmm
And we had an amazing conversation with Alan Gibber, who happens to be Zevi's father-in-law. And I haven't gotten around to it, but I have to now convert that with the halachic lens to make sure that it is up to date halachically and probably just up to date. I did it 4 or 5 years ago.
hmm
So there's work on my side to do that. And I will link to that conversation. It's certainly not a conversation that gets millions of views. I don't think people will like thinking about this naturally, but I do know those who listen to that episode and the advice shared by experts on wills and trusts and forward thinking towards those less exciting conversations are in a much better place than those who just keep their head in the sand. Case in point, the conversation we just had about
hmm
that scary, uncomfortable conversation between families, moving parts. This is what he would have wanted. You don't know. He didn't, this is what he wanted because that's what he did. Oh gosh, it could just be messy.
I think if you speak to most elder care lawyers, they'll say that the most common time people reach out to them is after people dealt with their own parents and they realize that it's real,
Mm,
costs of, getting older and healthcare costs are a real financial issue if they're not taken care of. And they're like, oh, wait, I'm dealing with this with my parents who are older. Maybe I should have a conversation now so that it's not last minute and we're fretting over what to do with certain transfers that might be deemed not allowable in state law for approval for Medicaid and Medicare and other programs which can help with these costs.
One fear, as people tell me this over and over, is now I have to call my parents. They're quite young and have a conversation. It's almost like I'm expecting the question of what you think I'm old? You think something's happening to me? I'm like, no, no, no. It just Shimon Willig was on the podcast and he said, that's uncomfortable. So if I don't have to ask it, I'm not gonna. What how do I go about that? And I know my parents listen to the podcast, so they'll probably message me. But that's one way of going about it, creating a podcast for 96 episodes, planting it quietly on one of the conversations, and then your parents reach out to you. But that's not recommended. It's a lot of work. How does someone broach that topic in a respectful, non-anxious way with parents?
Usually the way it works is that however early you approach your parents about it, your kids will approach you 5 years earlier. Obviously do it with a lot of sensitivity.
Mhm.
But it's not a bad idea to blame an advisor or a lawyer for that matter who said, "Hey, let's have this conversation." I tell people when it comes to, insurance, life insurance, and their health stuff which come up and they're like, "Oh, you telling me that I'm sick and I'm going to die?" or something like that. And I say, "I'm not telling you anything. Insurance works that they put you in like this actuarial square. We spoke about actuaries beforehand. And however you come out, that's where they're willing to go and rate you as. So when it comes to planning for the future as well, it's, hey, you're at this age, I think it's important to have these conversations, you know, earlier rather than later. If you push it off too long, it can get even more uncomfortable. So let's sit down with a lawyer. Let's figure out what we need to figure out and make sure that there is peace that's going to stay in the family. Because ultimately, especially if there's real assets, if you don't deal with it, the lasting legacy of the family is going to be fights.
Mm.
And all of us know families that are still embroiled in fights that have lasted decade, maybe with an S, after the parents moved on. And what a waste when there was a close-knit family and the parents invested so much time and effort to make things peaceful, but it all unravels with with fights. So the earlier on you can have communication about it, the better. Doesn't mean that when you're 40 you have to start, doing really intense planning, but it means at a reasonable time there should be conversations brought up about, hey, just let's make sure that we all know, who's going to be running the show
Right.
afterwards, and what would you guys like to happen?
Right. In our conversation with Alan, we also spoke about knowing where important documents are, passwords. Uh-oh, your face is lighting up.
Yeah,
What happened recently?
and no, I know where documents are. Imagine a guy has, uh, you know, back to like insurance. He has a big insurance policy,
Mm-hmm.
and his wife doesn't even know that he has it.
Mm-hmm.
It could be buried in his documents. They'll never find out about it, and the insurance company's not coming knocking at your door. So unless there are people who you're close with, who you trust, then know where your assets are, know how to access them. Like you mentioned,
Right.
the computer, they're worthless. So make sure that there's somebody who knows. Preferably, I would say not a spouse,
Right.
preferably a child who's maybe a little younger, who, you know, with the way the world normally goes, they're going to be around after you pass on. They should know how to access and where to find these important documents.
Right. I have a friend of mine that keeps, whether it's secure or not, and he tries to keep it secure, but he has all the information in the cloud on a sheet where so and so can find it. And he does periodic updates. He does it monthly, quarterly. I don't know what it is,
Hmm.
but at least there's one central place. And there's even software or online software that will allow you to input all this information and share it. So, yeah, you pay $60 a year, but all that information is stored. It will prompt you to store it. A quick message from Florida. I'm talking about Miami Lakes. People are looking to move to Florida, but they don't want to settle for a shoebox. They're going to spend good money. They want an up and coming, beautiful community with a house that is not a shoebox. So if you're looking for that, a from Orthodox Jewish community that's still under the radar for now, they have about 20 families, a beautiful shul, a warm and growing chevra, and people of all ages and backgrounds. It's Miami Lakes. They're building something real. So let me tell you about the homes, or I'll let Berel Follman of Miami Lakes tell you about it. He says it's unbelievable. Quote, where else in South Florida can you get 3,000 square feet, a private pool, a gorgeous neighborhood, and a solid chevra for this kind of price? What you get here, you don't get anywhere else in South Florida. End quote. That's Miami Lakes. He says it's great homes, great people, a growing frum community that's just getting started. For those listening on audio, we're showing photos of the neighborhood on the screen right now. It's nice, right? So if you're done overpaying for tight spaces and ready to enjoy Florida the way it was meant to be, call Berel at 631-485-4482. That number again, 631-485-4482. Tell him Ellie sent you. You can find his phone number in the show notes, and you can also Google Miami Lakes, check it out on Zillow, and enjoy. And lastly, a word from our friends at Colel Chabad. Did you know that because of Colel Chabad, over 47,000 families in Israel, let me say that again, 47,000 families in Israel have reliable access to nutritious food. That's literally hundreds of thousands of people being helped because of people like you. Parents should not have to skip meals so their children can eat. And Colel Chabad is on the front lines fighting for them. They've been around since 1788, hundreds and hundreds of years. That's older than me. Crazy, right? The percentage of every dollar donated that actually goes to help the poor and sick is very, very high. Why? Because Colel Chabad keeps administrative costs to a minimum. They avoid high rents, and they have an army of volunteers, but they can't do it alone. Please give what you can to our brothers and sisters in need in Israel. Visit kolchabad.org/kosher money, scan the QR code, and give what you can. It could be $1, it could be $100,000, it could be 5 shekel. I don't even know what the exchange rate is there, but that's a little more than $1. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now back to the episode. Okay, so back to this. I'm going to click Get Started on this Roth IRA, and now I'm going to provide my information. So this is going to be blurred. First name, last name. It's asking for my current address. It wants me to, I can only do this if I'm a US citizen.
It wants to know if your current address is in the US, but if you're not, there's still ways for you to open an account.
Okay, cool. I'm blurring my social security number. Oh, No one could see it. I'm sure you see a lot of social security numbers over the years, right?
Maybe.
I like that. HIPAA as it relates to finance. Okay.
It's good not to have a great memory when you're an advisor, you know?
Right, right. Like, I just saw digits. I don't remember what I saw. Okay, so now I clicked open an account and I see it breaks down the steps. There's personal, regulatory, features, review, agreements. So there's always a two-factor authentication. I'm going to have it email me and we're going to open up my email account. How do you feel about two-factor authentication? Have you run into issues where people lost access to an account because they didn't have security?
Um, I did personally. I had an old email address that I didn't have access to. I was looking to get access to, and my old phone number as well was listed on the account, and I couldn't get access to it because of it. But overall, in the world that we live in today with so much digital scams and security threats, the benefits greatly outweigh the drawdowns. So if you could have it and they're asking for it, it's a very good thing.
And don't share that code with
Anybody,
somebody.
correct? And if somebody asks for it, even if it looks legitimate, really think twice.
I tell people if they get a call from their bank, hang up, take out, don't even Google it because Google will show the wrong phone number. Call the phone number on the back of your card, which that advice will work until these scammers start sending actual physical cards for, you know?
Yeah. There are
Okay.
so many stories with really smart corporate people, that understand the threats of malware, but have gotten scammed. Like there are people who they'll have a conversation about sending a wire,
Yeah.
and the lawyer will say, okay, send me $100,000 or $200,000. You'll hang up the phone and you'll go to send the wire, and there'll be an email like listing the wire information from your lawyer, and you'll send it to them, and it'll be from somebody who managed to somehow get in there and send you their information. You'll send it to the wrong place. So oftentimes it's the best idea to do when you're sending, something which is significant. Call that person on the other line, just confirm them with them on the phone. Not don't trust the digital part. Be like, hey, is it A B C D E F G? Yeah, and then send it. Better safe than sorry.
100%. I put a security question. I filled out the information. It's asking for my home address.
Right?
This,
Very very similar to like opening a bank account. That's
right.
why I like to tell people, don't be so scared about a brokerage account. It's very similar to a bank account. There's really not much of a difference. It's just a matter of how you relate to the money there. It's different.
Okay, verifying my address. It says, would you like to add a trusted contact? It's a good idea to name a trusted contact who we can contact on your behalf if we suspect you may be the target of financial exploitation or if we have concerns about your well being. You can always add or remove a trusted contact after your account is open. Should I add on?
A good idea. Um, it's a trusted contact cannot make financial decisions on your behalf. It's just a way for the company to be like, so this person called in and sounded a little bit woozy and not really so with it,
Oh, interesting.
asking to, trade XYZ. Is that person getting older? Is that person okay? And it's a way for you to kind of make somebody aware of something which sounds a little fishy to deal with it. But you're not giving permission for that person to take on money or to even make trades on your behalf. It's just as like somebody for them to contact.
Who would you like to inherit your IRA assets? I can add up to 10 beneficiaries. Now, this Roth IRA, I'm going to have my wife be a joint owner in it. Would am I not? Is it? Oh, it's
Correct.
individual.
Yes, that's
Oh,
right.
interesting. So theoretically, I would add her as my
That's right.
primary.
Hmm.
But if I would add one more person, they would then split that 50-50, or I can then allocate. Meaning, if someone wants to add two people, a spouse and a child, is that not recommended? Or because God forbid, if something was to happen to both spouses, then this is just floating unless someone has a will.
Correct. Correct. So it's a good idea. Usually, a spouse is the number one beneficiary of an IRA or most assets. You can add as a secondary beneficiary. You can add either your estate and have it that your will governs it, or you can just put your children directly. A very common, you know, beneficiary setup is wife is the primary getting 100%. And when, she moves on, it's going to be the children afterwards.
I recommend not doing this while you're distracted. I added my birthday to my wife initially, but I updated that. So
Perfect.
make sure you look over your information. It says, let us know how you want to divide up your assets. Enter the percentage of assets that each primary beneficiary will receive. So I only added my wife,
hmm
so she would get 100%.
hmm
Would you like to add up backup
hmm
beneficiaries?
You don't have to do it right now,
Right.
but technically speaking, a good idea would be to add your children equal shares. It's not a bad idea. Or you can add your estate as the beneficiary, which will then be governed by what you write in your will.
Gotcha. And this idea of adding social security and taxpayer identification numbers, it says is not required, but
Correct.
encouraged to identify the correct beneficiaries. That's good because you don't want them dealing with more paperwork, showing proof.
That's right.
So it takes a little bit of extra time in the sign up process, but
Correct.
don't rush through it for the
And
sake of
also,
speed.
it's mentioned before, if you're in a rush, you don't have to go and add it in right away.
Uh-huh.
You can change your beneficiaries at any point, obviously, right? If something changed in your life, like we mentioned before, it's actually really encouraged to change your beneficiaries. But, good idea to get something on there while you open the account and recognize that whatever you put in there can be changed at any point.
Okay, employment status for me. I'm entering the information, the business address. Very, very simple, not scary stuff. And I don't think this is where people tend to have the issue, although just getting to this part is scary when they don't know what a Roth IRA is. But
Mhm.
okay, entered in all the information, hit continue. Okay, now it's asking me, are you a member of the board of directors, 10% shareholder, or policy making officer of a publicly held company? The answer is no.
That's right.
Are you or is anyone with a beneficial interest in this account employed by or associated with any of the following? A registered broker dealer, FINRA, a stock exchange.
Most people don't have to answer yes. Most people are not, connected to a stock exchange, but someone like me will have to say yes.
Would you like paperless documents? I always want paper.
Always on paper.
Yes.
Great.
I'll tell you why. Emails are very easy to delete, very easy to ignore. Sometimes, in order to look at the information, you have to log in
hmm
and get lazy. A statement comes in the mail. I'm good with my mail. I
hmm
open it, I look at it. Even if I'm not looking at every page, there's a physical reminder. I've also heard stories where the only time someone knew about an account that someone had was after they passed away was because something came in the mail. If someone's locked out of an inbox, you're not going to see that.
Back to what we spoke about earlier, right? Making sure people know where your stuff is located so that doesn't have to be. Also, a side benefit of getting paper mail is that you get to feel very popular. The mail comes in all the time, every trade, every month, stuff
Uh-huh.
comes in, big envelopes. Most people like paperless, but especially when you're dealing with older people, oftentimes they like paper stuff.
We're at the 50-yard line. We finished with the personal, the regulatory, and now we're at the features, the third of 5 steps. And it says, would you like to add these trading features? And it says things that I do not know what they are. Limited margin, options trading, Thinkorswim trading platforms. So for me, and I might be different than some people, if I don't know what it is, I'll just click no.
That's right.
Instead of freezing, instead of looking up what it is, I imagine I can always add this later on. Is that right?
That is correct.
So I'm just a basic guy. I don't need whatever limited margin features are. I'm not doing options trading. I like using ChatGPT to ask simple questions, and I do my research, or I try to when it gives me an answer, because sometimes it can hallucinate if I was really curious about something. But here, I'll just click no because I
It,
want to get this done.
yeah. Also, for people just doing basic trading, like we're trying to communicate towards, none of this. Thinkorswim is like a more high level. If you want high level, tech and data on the stocks that you're trading and graphs and charts and stuff, that's where Thinkorswim plays a strong role. Like if you're a day trader, you definitely want Thinkorswim and stuff like that.
Right.
But for the regular person who's investing, you don't want that.
We're up to the fourth step, review, look over the information, make sure everything is correct. You can edit it. and I'm going to continue. It
Mm-hmm.
says your security is our priority. Thank you, Charles.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have Charles' number, do you? Like Mr. Schwab.
No, I don't have Mr. Schwab. I
Right,
wonder if he's still alive even.
right. Agreement. Okay. I'm going to check that I agree.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's important to read over and make sure that it all makes sense and you're agreeing with things that you agree with.
That's why I like to use a reputable place, meaning
Correct.
I'm not going to necessarily look through their terms and conditions, although the lawyer in you.
This one is actually, if I can just cut you off for a second,
go
this one
ahead.
is the only one that you have to like kind of use your head for a second. Most people opening an account are a non-professional subscriber, which means that they're not professional in what they do.
Mhm.
Again, it's just for your own security that Schwab can kind of get an idea of who's opening the account and what
Mhm.
they should expect to see.
If I were to open this on Schwab and then 3 years from now want to move it to Fidelity,
Yeah.
I could do that?
hmm Just like a bank account, like I mentioned a bunch already,
Mhm.
there's really so many similarities when you open a brokerage account, especially with a reputable broker house like we mentioned, Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, even Robinhood is becoming more and more popular. E-Trade, there's no different between them and JP Morgan really in terms of the security of your money. They're huge firms. You get statements in the mail, right? There's no Bernie Madoff issues going on over here.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of in this account, I'm going to be able to invest the money there, while in a bank account, I'm just doing banking features and getting maybe a 0.5% in savings if it's not high yield.
Right. So don't open an account with a firm you've never heard of that sent you a postcard in the mail and you can't find anything about them online.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm a non-professional subscriber and I agree to the terms and conditions. Sometimes I'll copy and paste the whole terms and conditions and ask ChatGPT to succinctly tell me what it's saying in 7 bullet points,
That's so smart. Nice.
and I'll get a good sense. Obviously, here I'm not going to do that, but when I get a 20-page document, I'm going there, I'm uploading the document, pay my $21 a month to OpenAI's ChatGPT, and it allows me to better understand. If the words are too sophisticated, I'll say explain it like to
hmm
an eighth grader, and it's amazing how it can convert just in basic understanding. It says, have you been notified that by the IRS that you are subject to backup withholding? Baruch Hashem, no. And I confirm that this information is true and correct. There's someone driving on like the 17 going to upstate New York, listening to us on waiting for me to get past this list so
hmm
that they can hear smart things from Shimon. But for those that do want to see how we're doing this, that's why we're doing it. More and more people were reaching out and saying, you got to go through it. But who's to say we can't make it interesting as we go? We're reviewing your application. This shouldn't take too long. So is there a human behind here that's looking at this or?
I think it's mostly digital, at least around the early stages. If something's wrong with the Social Security, and they might contact you afterwards and say, "Hey, you listed it as wrong,"
Oh, okay.
but you'll see the accounts open up immediately right away.
So there's my account number. Jody, the editor, is going to blur that. And now I can start adding funds.
hmm
So let's talk about the investing side of things as I add funds from my bank.
hmm
I could theoretically transfer $100,
That's
right?
right.
I don't have to have $20,000 to open up a retirement account. Do you think that's a little bit of a misconception where people say, it's only $50, it's only $100. Is
hmm
it really worth it? What would be
hmm
your answer to them?
You don't have to put, you could put $10 in. Doesn't even have to be 50. I always like to tell people that if you can build for yourself some sort of goal that you want to save towards, even if it's very small, but that $50 a month that you have at the end of the month to to do something with, if it's going somewhere towards something, and you know that your goal is $100 a month or 75, whatever the number is, you'll save it. If you have no perspective, if you have no direction in your financial life, so what are you gonna do with the extra $50? You're gonna go out to pizza, or you're gonna go and spend it on whatever you want to spend it for. So important that try to instead of being like whatever's extra, let me invest, in Charles Schwab, rather try to build a concrete number that you're working towards to invest.
I like that. So I do it where I automate a certain amount of money, but if I feel like I have extra monies, I'll do a manual transfer.
hmm
By the way, the thing I Google the most is Chase's routing number. I must have Googled that thousands of
Usually
times.
it's 021 0000021.
That's what it is.
Okay.
So I'll call you whenever I need it.
Yeah.
Account nickname. I like those. I started
Do
using
you?
them because if you have multiple accounts, especially for kids or whatnot, you want to nickname it instead of just having
hmm
whatever.
Because sometimes it's going to come up on your screen as like just custodial. But if you have a nickname that's listed on it, you can know
Right.
like, you can differentiate them.
Okay, so I named mine Ellie's Roth IRA. I wonder if there's a Jewish guy out there named Ira Roth. Probably is,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Kind of cool. Okay, so what would you like to do next? I want to transfer the funds. I connected my Chase account.
But do you see how easy it is and how
Yeah.
intuitive it is
Yeah.
to do this? And again, I don't work for Charles Schwab. This is the same way for every brokerage that you use. They make it very simple to figure out how to transfer funds. And anything which isn't clear from here, by the way, if I'm allowed to say it, go to Google or go to YouTube and say how to transfer funds to my Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, E-Trade, anything.
Mhm.
And you'll get a 5-minute video on how to do it, going through, exactly the platform. You get the old platform, the new platform, the next gen platform. There's so much information out there to help people invest their money and open accounts and do things that maybe they're naturally not so comfortable with,
Mhm.
but you can get super clear instructions on anything you want to do.
Tell us what you'd like to transfer. Cash only, positions in cash. What is a position?
A position is like a stock or an ETF or a mutual fund.
So here, I'm only going to be transferring cash from my bank to my Roth IRA. I, by mistake, named my bank Ellie's
Oh,
Roth IRA. That's why
okay.
it's doing that.
There we go.
But you see what happens. So I
Mhm.
can edit that name. But where it says Ellie's Roth IRA, that's Ellie's Chase Bank. The Roth contributory IRA is where I'm sending the money.
Mhm.
Okay, so contribution year. I've already sent $7,000.
I wouldn't, honestly, in this account, I wouldn't send money exactly because it's not, once it gets sent into the account, it's
Yeah.
it's real money we just sent.
Yeah.
So maybe the best place to go and do trading is through the regular brokerage account or something that you can move money.
Got it. But if I had already moved 7,000 to my traditional IRA, am I done
You're
for the
done with
year?
you're done with IRAs. Yes.
For the calendar year? Okay.
Mhm.
So theoretically, in 2026, I can come back here and start investing
That's right.
to that.
Yep.
Fine. So we see how easy it is to open an account. I do want to go through some of the other accounts that they have or products that we can open, and we'll talk that out. Thus, we'll conclude the actual screen share. But we spoke about the IRAs. When should someone open up an individual brokerage account?
So an individual brokerage account is when you're not trying to save for retirement. You're just trying to invest money that you have sitting around. So you don't want to lock it up until you retire, even though you're going to give up on some of the benefits of the, IRA account or the like. But still, you want your money to grow. We know, especially recently, that inflation is a really big factor. Think about whatever clothing, gas, food, everything is more expensive than it was just a few years ago. So you want to make sure that your assets keep up and do better than the inflation. So instead of putting in the bank account and make 2%, you can put it in the brokerage account and invest in the stock market.
And whether it's an IRA, Roth IRA, traditional brokerage account, when someone wants to buy a boring index fund, I find it so easy. You click on trade, buy, select, it's an ETF.
Depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you know, whether it's SPY, a collection of the top 500 companies in the S&P, speak to your advisor, but it's so easy to, instead of putting cash into the account and letting it sit there, and God forbid that happens
hmm
because it's just never going to grow, you want to try to purchase
hmm
something that will grow
hmm
or potentially will grow, which doesn't have to be Google or some bet on a tech stock that
That's
you
right.
think is going to grow. You can buy something that is a collection of the entire stock market, and it's historically much safer.
hmm People always ask, like, if I invest money in the S&P 500, but didn't I hear that I'm supposed to have a diversified portfolio? So I say, have you ever heard of Apple and Nvidia?
Mhm.
So it varies how much space in the S&P 500 it takes on. But let's say it takes on 5%.
Mhm.
So I have a portfolio with 5% of Apple, 5% Nvidia, 4% Google, 1% Tesla, whatever it might be, and 0.5% ExxonMobil. My portfolio is 500 stocks into 100% divided by how big of a companies they are. So it's a really diverse portfolio. It's just you know put into one ticker symbol. But if you would peel off the cover in it, you would actually see that many stocks with that many percentage. What I would suggest, though, is when people start investing money, especially if you could do it on a consistent basis, is to maybe go the mutual fund route. They're very similar. You can Google usually Charles Schwab S&P 500 mutual fund, right? And the difference is, besides for what they're called and how they trade, mutual funds only get the trade only gets settled at the end of the day. But mutual funds are bought and sold in a dollar amount. So if I have $100 in the account, I can't buy one stock of VOO. It's just too expensive. I can buy a fifth of it.
Mhm.
But with the mutual fund, I can buy $100 worth of that, call it stock. And what's really cool is that I can do it on a month to month basis. I can say I'm giving $250 a month and I want to have it invested. I can have it go $100 here, $100 here, $50 here, and not be worried that, oh my goodness, the stock became more than $100, so I can't afford to buy it anymore.
Got it. Also, this idea when you open up an IRA, it will ask you when you want to retire, and it'll basically purchase for you some sort of portfolio. How does that work? Because let's say someone's 30 years old, they want to retire in 30 years, so it's 2025. If they select a retirement date of 2055, what happens on the purchasing side?
So if they're going to do it for you, what it means is that as you get closer to retirement, they're going to take money out of the stock market and put it into more fixed income and bonds and things of the sort. It's actually important to, especially when it comes to, let's say, 401ks, which is similar to IRAs in the structure. When you pick a retirement account and you don't actually choose like a stock to invest in,
Mhm.
there's a natural stock they pick. Usually it's a target date fund,
Mhm.
which kind of acts the same way as, let's say, Schwab doing the investing for me
Mhm.
if I choose that direction. And that fund of people retiring in 2060 is going to change their investments as you get closer and closer to the 2060 year. Again, I don't want to hate on all the companies that do it. Oftentimes I find that they're a little conservative. Not, I'm a very conservative person in my business and everything we do, but you just want to make sure that the fund is not putting you in 80% bonds 10 years before you're retired. For most people, unless that's what their, heart tells them, they're just too nervous to take on any risk.
Mhm.
But for most people, if they're being cerebral about it, that's too much security, so to speak, and not enough your money working for you. So just make sure that the funds that you use and or the people that are trading for you are being reasonable in their, you know, allocation of the funds.
I will say for someone that doesn't want to think and just open an account, you can select some target date fund just so you know that something positive is happening. And if you
Hmm.
don't have the wherewithal, the time to speak to an advisor or whatnot, it's not like you can't change course at some
That's
point.
right.
You're allowed to come out of the target date fund and then invest
That's right.
differently. And if you're going to do nothing versus opening up some sort of retirement account, clicking on a target date fund, automating a certain amount of money to go into that,
Hmm.
you are light years ahead of somebody who's just sitting and doing nothing.
That's right. And especially early on, like if we're talking about a 2060 retirement fund, right now they should be much more heavily in stocks. Where it changes is as you get closer to the retirement age. So hey, put it in now. It's a regular, mostly large cap investment with some bonds and some foreign interests as well. And then you can decide maybe as you get more comfortable in the world of investments, you realize that hey, it's not so complicated and I'm not giving up my money. It's really accessible to me, especially if it's in an individual or joint brokerage account. I can access all the money in the account in one business day.
Mhm.
That recently changed. It used to be that only mutual funds settle the next day, ETFs and stocks in 2 days. Here, everything settles in one business day. I put in $500,000 on Monday. I have a business deal tomorrow. I sell the stock on Monday. Tuesday, I have the money and it's movable. And so even for me, when it comes to like security, like 3 to 6 months, I always tell people, you know, if you're investing right and you're taking the right amount of risk, you don't even need 6 months of security because your assets, which are invested, is cash for you in one business day. So why would I have, you know, $50,000 of cash sitting there because I need 6 months? If I have some sort of amount in stocks and I recognize that the stock market, if you're well diversified, is not going to shift by 70%, meaning I'll have a significant portion of my money there in all likelihood, you know, in a week or two, and in a month, in a year.
Mhm.
So I can afford to take on more risk because I know that's really cash waiting for me to go and sell and access.
Right. Not everyone thinks like that. Some people say, no, if you are going to need it, don't risk it, put it in a high yield savings account. But I like that approach in the sense that there are different ways of going about it. This is a little bit more aggressive, but again, it's more conservatively
Correct.
aggressive.
It's just recognizing, and this is the point, if I can give over any point,
Yeah.
is recognizing that the assets that you have in a brokerage account are not gone forever. It's your money. Instead of a statement coming from JP Morgan, you're getting a statement from Charles Schwab, right? They're two publicly traded large conglomerates. So just one of them, instead of it being cash, is in the S&P 500, and one is sitting in cash for you. But you can access that money if it's not put away in a retirement account in one business day. So if you're really nervous, again, about investments and assets and you need that 6 months of cash, please go ahead, do it. It's important to be psychologically and comfortable because that's the only way you can be successful in the long term, by feeling good about your investments. But if you're somebody who recognizes investments and understands the way the market works, there is a really good argument to be made that you don't need as much cash sitting around because you do have the access to the money in the brokerage account. Obviously, you need to discuss it with maybe an advisor or somebody that understands investments, just to make sure you're being reasonable, right? If you have $50,000 and you need $50,000 in 6 months, maybe it's not a good idea to take on any risk because you need that amount of money.
Mhm.
Why would you risk your down payment for your house to make 2% or 3%? But if it's just much more open ended, then maybe have that conversation.
I was buying in my IRA and brokerage account, I was buying SPY,
Hmm.
the ticker SPY, and
Right.
then someone said buy VOO
Could have said
because
1 basis point.
the expense ratio,
Okay.
meaning what is an expense ratio and why did he tell me that to do that? Because over the long term, I'd be saving more purchasing that ticker versus that ticker.
Yeah. I think recently, actually, VOO took over SPY as being the number one S&P 500 ETF.
Hmm.
Again, most like trading firms have their own S&P 500, so to speak, ETF or mutual fund. Fidelity has it, Schwab has it, Spider, which is SPY, has it, Vanguard has it, VOO. It doesn't need so much analyzing because it's just following the index. Like however much percentage, again, Nvidia, Amazon, Apple takes on of the S&P 500, that's how much of the stock will take on in its ETF. So since it's not so expensive for the companies, they can really charge really low prices
Mm.
to invest in it. If you just Google SPY or VOO, you'll see an expense ratio. I think VOO is like 2 basis points, which is 0.02%
Yeah.
that they charge, while I think I said VOO was zero point 0.2, maybe a Spider was 3 or 4 beeps.
Uh-huh.
So technically speaking, it's cheaper, but especially if it's been there for some time, recognize the tax costs of selling the stock and buying another stock. Maybe realize it's not worth it. Sometimes think a little bit bigger
Bigger,
than
right.
1 basis point. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I want to end off by talking about UTMAs and 529 college savings plan. So if someone has kids, they want to put money away towards their bar mitzvah or their wedding, they can create an account for a minor
Hmm.
to invest long term. Child is born,
Hmm.
they put $1,000 into this minor account, UTMA, UGMA, look up the difference. But then they can automate $100 a month to go into that account and have it invested. And then by the time the child is ready to get married, you could be looking at 50 to 100K for the wedding.
That's
Now,
right.
you, by the way, you could be spending less on the wedding. You don't have to spend 50,000, but do you see people doing that?
Oh yeah. So that's a really important thing to do. Again, what is a UTMA? What is UGMA? Like, am I giving away my money? I think many of us have experienced a grandparent or a parent who opened up a bank account for us or bought us a stock. What it is you're opening an account in the child's name. So the child is the primary account holder. But since the child is a 1 month old, obviously can't make any prudent financial decisions. So you make the decisions for them. You invest the money on their behalf. What's really beneficial to opening up a UTMA account, which is why I'm a big proponent of UTMAs and maybe less of a proponent of 529s. It might be a little controversial that way because when a child trades a stock, when any person trades a stock, there's tax consequences. They pay capital gains tax, which again, we don't need to go all in on capital gains tax, but long-term capital gains tax, which means any asset which I held for longer than a year gets taxed at a different rate than if I made money in my business. The long-term capital gains tax for individuals, just Google it, what it is, for a large from $0 of earnings till whatever the number is, $70,000, $80,000, you pay zero taxes on the capital gains. So you pay 15% normally, 15 to 20%. If it's a long-term capital gain and you're a low earner, you pay zero. So most children don't pay any taxes on long-term capital gains. Again, we're talking about investing for the long term, right? We're talking about investing for the bar mitzvah, weddings. Usually that we're talking at least a year that you could be holding your investments for. So a person, again, this has to work with kiddie taxes, which means you can really only realize between $1,300 and $2,600 of capital gains a year, which will be the child's responsibility. But you have, call it, that amount of money to realize and not pay any taxes on. So think about if you're trying to, save $40,000 or $50,000 and you're doing it over 20 years because the child's young. So multiply 20 by, call it $2,000 or $2,600. And that's over $50,000 of capital gains you're able to realize over the life of the investment. So if you do it smartly, you can basically have an account that can invest money for your children and you could basically pay zero taxes on it. So the whole benefit of opening up a 529 educational account, again, it's complex because every state is different, is that you're going to be able to invest without paying taxes on the investments as you move, if it goes towards their education.
Do you see Orthodox Jews creating 529 accounts?
Yes, I do. But usually if they're a client of mine, again, unless there's money to do both, so to speak, like they have enough money to do both,
All right.
I will prefer if they can do it through the UTMA account because it gives again, back to the flexibility part, right? People like to feel not like choked. 529 has its restrictions, both in terms of how you can use the money and what investments you can have. While if you do the UTMA game and play it right, you can get a lot of the same benefits, but with much more flexibility on your end.
Okay, so as you can see here, I also created a UTMA account, that custodial account for my son. I put in $100. But that's all fine and dandy when you're in the moment, you realize you put money in, you trade, you invest. That's great. But the key is to automate. If you have a retirement account, a brokerage, a custodial account, whatever it is, you want to try to automate it so that you are putting money away consistently. And there's no better way to do that than just once and it repeats without you. So whether it's $10, $25, $100 a month, $500 a week, whatever you're able to put away, assuming that you've taken care of your debt, you should automate it. So how do you do that? On Charles Schwab's website, you have the ability to automate the purchase of a mutual fund. So if you wanted to trade, you would click on trade, automated investing. On Fidelity, it's a little bit different. And you can see here, I put in the ticker SWPPX. That's basically a mutual fund within Schwab that will allow people to purchase the 500 best companies in this exchange. So, or in this index. Okay, so SWPPX. Now we are going to enroll. It says, how much do you want to buy? So let's say I want to buy $25 a week. You can do weekly, every other week, twice a month, monthly, every 3 months, every 6 months, or annually. Let's say I wanted to spend $25 on this, okay? I'm going to cut out a breakfast outing with some lunch, make it at home. I'm going to say that $25 will now come into my son's account, and I'm going to purchase this SWPPX or VU on other sites or SPY, whatever it is. And the transaction day is going to be on Tuesday. I click continue. And we are off to the races. Total fees, $0. Submit. And that's it. That's all you need to do to automate. So this idea of when opening an account, if money's sitting in cash, it's not growing. So it is very, very, very important that you're investing. Whatever it is, make sure it's automated, make sure you're able to do it, and this way it'll happen consistently. I looked up VOO versus SPY, which we were talking about before on expense ratios.
Did I get it right? 214?
So it's from ChatGPT, so I don't know how current it is, but I did say check the web, which is a tip. You should always ask ChatGPT to check the web for something current. Vanguard VOO has an expense ratio of 0.03%.
Okay.
Might have just rounded. Spider SPY is often rounded to 0.095. So it's 0.65 higher. What that means in real terms, VU costs $3 per year for a $10,000 investment. SPY costs about $9.45 per year on the same amount. But if you think about it, if you're doing one over the other and you're bugging out, don't bug out. It's just very minor numbers. Something you should be careful about is the newer apps can sometimes, if you're not looking, tack on some fees like a tip or a contribution. If you're using Robinhood or Public or one of those mobile apps, I purchased VOO this morning. I bought one share. I think it was $580 something, and said, oh, you need to deposit cash. So, okay. So I put $580 from my bank into here. Click buttons like, let's go. And then it says, okay, thank you for your tip of $8. I didn't realize to uncheck it. So I don't think you'll see that so much with the Charles Schwab,
That's right.
but these newer trading platforms are a little bit gamey, and tips are everywhere in this culture. So be on the lookout for that versus, whatever the VOO, SPY, you're not going to, what I just said is more important than the expense ratios of basis points. We also had a couple of guests, they called it a Cowboy account, meaning someone enjoys trading.
Absolutely. I totally agree with them.
What is a Cowboy account?
Okay. If anybody doesn't know what a cowboy is somebody who shoots from the hip, who just does things by whim. And there's a certain adrenaline rush. Investing, gambling in sports. We spoke about our sports appreciation before the show started, is kind of cowboy. It feels good. It gives you an interest in the game. If I put $100, maybe I can make 500. So people like that adrenaline. They like that.
Kosher Money has a hard stance against gambling, but there are those that like to play the market, and we don't shut them out completely. We allow them to be a cowboy, but in a smaller, right?
Correct. So if you have someone who is, let's say, very successful and feels the necessity to go and buy whatever he hears in the coffee room, or like whatever small stock that he thinks is the new big hit, it's not a bad idea for the person to take control over a responsible amount of money. I found with my clients who I encourage them to do it if I feel like they need to have it
and can afford it.
Right? It's all together. They're understanding their profile, that they'll learn that oftentimes they're wrong. So they'll get some good ones, right? They'll get whatever. We don't need any name stocks at the moment, but they'll nail one. They'll feel really good about it, and then like they'll see how it plummets, and they're busy being a doctor or a lawyer, and they have no clue about it. And they look at it like, what happened? Oh, because you weren't following, you didn't hear, so you lost out. But it's very healthy for them, because if we're in this to for the long term, if we're in this to allow them to live a financially stable life, how can we do it? Right? By giving them that ability to, you know, invest on them by themselves $25,000, which will then allow them to invest securely their other monies, is a really important trade off. So I think it's worth it. But again, do it with a reasonable amount of money. For some people, it could be $500 or $1,000, and for some people, it can be a more significant amount of money. If you really, really don't know what you're doing at all, like you don't even know how to buy a stock, then just you don't need it. It's not. I'm not advising everybody to have a Cowboy account.
Is Shimon Willig. What is your contact info? What if someone does have a question, follow up, comment, wants to
So maybe
critique you
we'll drop the information
in the show notes?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. You mentioned life insurance earlier. First of all, do you have life insurance?
Yes.
I had a friend who recently told me he doesn't have life insurance because he comes from a wealthy family that will just kick in the money and I'm like, okay, it's not the worst comeback I've heard, but I'm trying to
Right.
work on him. What is your advice or thoughts as it relates to life insurance?
Okay. So if you don't mind me giving a little shout out to, there's a wonderful organization in the five towns. It's called Project 120. And its goal is to advocate and to encourage all those, especially those living in the five towns, to get life insurance. It's a financial and a just being a good family member, which creates the need for life insurance. We want people to have their family have money, but also we don't want it through any collections, even if people could afford it. But the embarrassment that it causes by having people, splattered all over the walls and WhatsApp chats is really traumatic to families. So Project 120 was born to allow people to get life insurance, but in a way that they don't feel like they're getting sold. People are very wary with life insurance agents, whether it's right or not. We're not going to get involved with it, but they're worried to call a life insurance agent because they're like, maybe I'm going to be sold a product which I don't need. So we created a platform that people can just click on it. They can see what the cost will be, right? Cheap, low cost term insurance. And they can see if it makes sense for them. If they have questions, obviously they can reach out to the organization to help guide them. But it's without the fear, that stigma of, oh my goodness, I'm going to be sold, the Brooklyn Bridge because I need life insurance. Again, open up your eyes, or open up your phones. Every month or two, there is another story of, somebody who needs a collection for their family member. So please don't become that person. Try to, take care of your family in a really dignified way. Visit theproject120.com. Honestly speaking, you can call whoever. You can call any life insurance program. You can call any broker you want. This is not a business. It's really to try to encourage people that they can get life insurance. And if they need it to be done the way we have set up, please go and hit our website, check it out for yourself. Again, theproject120.com. And if you have any questions, check the website out and send an email. Be a dignified family member. Take care of your family in the right way.
This is a nonprofit, so
correct. And also, even in the books, if you we spoke about certification. When you want to become a financial advisor, you read that any decent financial plan has a life insurance policy in it. This is not like a made up thing that life insurance brokers marketed and made, brought into existence. Fundamentally, part of that plan is if, again, you're building towards the future, you want to save to a wedding and you don't make it, that far, you only were able to save for 3 years. So your life insurance policy is like the, skip the line money, which will come in and allow your family to make the weddings or mitzvahs, live the comfortable life that you wanted for them without you being there.
Our community has raised over $50 million, it says on the website, to support families who suddenly lost a loved one because there was no life insurance, which is beautiful, by the way. But it says that $50 million could have gone to other charities in need. and should have come from life insurance payouts. And it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So check it out. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. Shimon, I cannot thank you enough for this. Hopefully this helps a lot of people open up accounts, start planning for retirement, for bar mitzvahs, weddings, to take a trip. When they're 55, they want to start putting money away for that. God bless. Do this responsibly. Get your life insurance. We'll put Shimon's link in the show notes. Shimon, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ellie, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for sticking with us through this incredibly enlightening episode with the great Shimon Willig. I hope you're walking away with not just knowledge about investing for retirement, for a bar mitzvah, for a bas mitzvah, for a wedding, all the financial planning you're going to do, but I also want to make sure that you have some peace of mind because you're going to be making, with God's help, smarter money moves. If you feel like you need coaching, visit livingsmarterjewish.org, email info@livingsmarterjewish.org. They'll help set you up with a free coach. And if you want to be entered for the chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card, simply head over to this video on YouTube and work the following 2 words into your comment. You could do one or the other or both. The word smart or Shimon, that's his first name. Smart or Shimon. Shimon happens to be, the English version is Simon, but he is Shimon. That is the Hebrew word. A big congrats to Fagi G7348. Fagi, you just won a $100 Amazon gift card. Reach out to us on livinglchaim.com. If you found this episode valuable, please like and subscribe. Even consider sharing it with a friend. And you know why? That helps tell the algorithm that more and more people should see this. So until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep learning. Peace.
Living Lchaim.